Hey, yeah, let me take care of one bit of housekeeping. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome everybody to Cerebral Tackle. Good to see everybody here tonight. We've got a special little live. Okay, it's not showing yet on her end. Okay, let me know when it does. Um, I'm going to pop in here and where's Scott? There we go. Alrighty. Had to take a pair of housekeeping duties here. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We had some technical difficulties leading off the show, but as always, that's going to happen to me, right? So, with the NPFL's recent decision, thought we'd bring in two experts on the subject, two fine gentlemen that are over there busting their butts in the NPFL, none other than Mr. Mike Corbishley and Trent Palmer himself, the gentleman responsible for the much talked about survey over there. We're going to get to a little bit of that this evening. Want to thank you guys for joining me. I appreciate y'all very much. We thought we might have a third guest pop in, but apparently that didn't work out. With that said, I'd like to just start off by saying with this recent news, both of you guys being, full disclosure, involved in the electronics business as pertaining to fishing. Mm-hmm. I know it's got to be a blow, but neither of you gentlemen look like you're terribly old, but you're not spring chickens either. So I'm guessing y'all were catching fish before Forward Facing Sonar was a thing. Am I right?
Shoot, we're old compared to some of these guys getting in now.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 33. I've been heavily involved with electronics well before live scope and for any sort of forward sonar was a thing. I remember when the first LSS1 came out from Lowrance and having it in my boat, learning side scan. So technology's been an aspect of my involvement with fishing for a while, but I fished without technology for a long time, and I have also fished with technology for a long time.
Yeah. And you, Mike?
Yeah, similar, right? I started, I grew up fishing on a 8x12 Bass Raider John boat. That was what I fished my first tournament out of, with a trolling motor on the back and no graphs. We got lost getting to and from the boat ramp. So I've, had a mix of it for sure. I grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina, fished around here, and most of the year we fish, 6 inches of water where your trolling motor is kicking up dirt. So it's kind of a mix. And then, we did the whole college fishing deal. That's actually how Trent and I ended up meeting, and I graduated in 2016. So we've kind of seen the evolution of it, and work full time now for Lowrance as a full disclosure. So,
and to kind of inform everybody as to the evolution of this decision in the NPFL, when did you guys first start hearing rumblings that there may be something about to happen?
I can go ahead and answer that question. It was pretty much brought to my attention after ICAST. I unfortunately was not able to attend ICAST because my business, Sonar Pros, we had just moved into a new building, and we were and still are getting that building set up, and that took priority over going to ICAST for me. But after ICAST, pretty typical in the fishing industry, I started getting phone calls from individuals that said there was individuals from the NPFL asking questions to anglers, what their feedback would be if forward sonar was banned. So they were kind of doing like an audible person-to-person survey, for lack of better words. And then come to find out that was also being done at other events prior to ICAST as well. So for me, I caught wind of it after ICAST when some anglers and people in the industry made me aware of conversations happening.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I was at ICAST and everybody and their brother asked me about it there. So that was pretty accurate.
You got to hate it when like that's the first rumblings you hear is from other people. It's got to kind of get the hackles kind of on the back of the neck up a little bit, right?
Well, to be fair, Brad and Mike Como with NPFL, they did come up to me and ask my take on it, but they asked a lot of people's opinions around there. But that was kind of where the discussions first started, I think. For sure.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, through the rumor mill, there's been stuff for so long that, well, you know how it is. It's, fishing, especially around the world of professional fishing, can almost be like the Real Housewives sometimes. As far as rumor mills, right? That whole tin can game of telephone. One person says one thing, and by the time it whips around, it's something completely freaking different.
Absolutely.
I know we were hearing things, as much as a year ago as, oh, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. Oh, it's going to happen mid-season, which, okay, it doesn't happen a lot. Some things happen mid-season for some organizations.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, you put a lot of money up front to fish this stuff, right? So everything we do is signed with a contract beforehand. So I don't think any of that stuff probably would have really happened. I mean, but yeah.
But, you hear it, right?
Right.
It's out there. And
Absolutely.
sometimes, it's really out there. I've heard a lot of crazy stuff over the last couple of months. So,
yeah.
So when did you guys learn with everybody else with that little post, or was there a little bit of heads up beforehand that the hammer was actually coming down?
I mean, there was indications by leading up to the eventual decision that was made by NPFL. I had conversations with leadership, voicing my opinion and my business's standpoint on a decision like this, and was offering up compromises other than an all-out ban, or not compromises, I should say, offering up suggestions alternative to an all-out ban. And we just had some back and forth conversations, and it was voiced that they hadn't made a decision rolling into Saginaw Bay. We had an angler meeting on the off day in this topic, and it was made clear that there wasn't a decision made, and it was announced to us by leadership that once the decision was made, there would not be an internal communication, that they would just kind of do a one roll of communication, both publicly and internally to the field. So, I mean, there definitely was indications that they were considering doing this, but by no means was there a prior, like, hey guys, we're doing this, the announcement's going out on Labor Day. That was not communicated, which again, they leadership told us, we will not tell anyone internally yay or nay. It'll just be a open communication, so both internal anglers and the general public are aware of it.
So when it came down, was there kind of a sinking pit in your stomachs?
I mean, yeah, more frustration, right? Like, so let me say this up front, and I think that Trent would agree with most of this. I don't want to speak for him, but I've got a ton of respect for the ownership at NPFL. And I mean, that's Brad, Paul, Al, Michelle, Sean Mulhall, everybody that helped make the operation run. Like, fishing NPFL has been the most fun thing that I've ever done in my life over the last 3 years. Like, thoroughly enjoyed it. So I don't want to just like come out and try to bash them and it's just not going to be like that. But more so like, pit in my stomach, like more so disappointed as an angler, right? Because, while they had mentioned there was going to be they weren't interested in doing any kind of surveys with the field, although they have been kind of preaching the idea it's an angler-driven league. And transparently, they do generally listen to our opinions and things, and it's been kind of a two-way street there. But in this case, they were not interested in putting out a survey in the case that, you know, they didn't want to get anybody's hopes up. So we did have that meeting. They kind of let us speak. And, what Trent did was he actually had put together a survey. And I know you might be getting there, but Trent was putting together a survey because they weren't interested. So we wanted to have like actual data. There's a lot of people on social media that give their opinions and stuff, but and I mean this respectfully, fishing's one of the only sports where you spend $30,000 a year to fish at a national level. Okay. So we, at the end of the day, are paying customers to go out there and do that. So we wanted to kind of give them some hard data. So what Trent had put together was a survey on SurveyMonkey and sent it out to the whole field. And I think 99 anglers out of the 120 boat field filled it out. So it's a pretty good survey group. But there was actually only 14% of people on that survey that actually wanted it banned. So that was one of the things that was kind of discussed was, hey, you know, you're paying customers. There's only really 14% that actually want to see it banned. The rest were either indifferent or we're for keeping it. So that was, as far as a pit in our stomachs, it's not like, oh shoot, we're never going to be able to catch a bass. It's more so like, come on, like it's more disappointing, right? When you know, you want to assume they're listening to the anglers. And I think they do with most things, but in this case, it was, I think, more of a business call that, you know, I don't know. I didn't agree with.
Well, I understand that. And I mean, from an outsider looking in, I mean, even though I've had the occasion to have contact with, you know, several anglers and interview several people kind of behind the scenes, it almost, to me, if y'all feel like y'all can't speak to this, I completely understand. I don't want to put anybody in any spot. It almost seems like it's kind of a strategic move in some aspect, because there's some rumblings, obviously, again, rumor mill, that Bass and FLW or you know, MLF are both about to do something as well. Almost like a get it out there quick, get it out there first, and then kind of to see who's going to take that first step and try to snag some of that viewership from some folks that are anti-forward facing sonar that they may be able to pick up from a viewership level.
Yeah, I definitely, you know, from the business decision made, I mean, obviously I'm not in a position, you know, as a business owner, I'm not going to sit here and just strictly dictate if they made a right or wrong decision or make assumptions on why they made the decision. I think ultimately what was communicated to me by leadership as far as a reason for this decision is ultimately to you know, the goal is, number one, to have segmentation from their league compared to others, right? And that's a very wise business decision to have separation, because in reality, in the sport of bass fishing and pro bass fishing, or pro bass fishing, there was very muddy waters on the separation between the leagues. Like, at least MLF had their different format of weighing things in, and then Bass has always had the historical side of things, and then NPFL kind of landed somewhere in the middle. You know, what was communicated to me was it was a business. Ultimately, this was a business decision for the league to be profitable, viewership, getting a full field, increasing sponsors for the league. That is all things that need to be done to keep things financially healthy for the league and for the anglers. And ultimately, I think that the angle that was taken on this is to ban it, to have segmentation from the NPFL and others, and to take a shot at getting more viewership. Right. I think that's why the decision was done. Do I agree with the decision? No, but it's a decision they've made, and unfortunately, it has put me in a spot where I more than likely won't be fishing with them in the foreseeable future after this season. And it definitely, to your point earlier, was a little bit of a gut punch, but at the same time, it's their business, it's their decision to do this. We're ultimately customers in this whole thing.
Gotcha. Yeah. Let's see here. Let me see here. Okay. So there was a gentleman, is that what you're referring to? Sorry, my wife is also helping out with some of the questions from the viewers as well here. To get to this question from the viewer, I'm going to kind of set it up. This is from Don Yarborough. I'm going to kind of lead into this. Don says that his impression of the questions that were on the survey were skewed towards Freudian slip, skewed towards being in favor of forward-facing sonar. The impression I got from what I saw of the questions was something different. Trent, since you're the resident expert, can you maybe even give us verbatim of what those questions were?
I got it here in front of me. And to be clear, the reason I rolled out a survey, kind of to Mike's point earlier, is when I caught wind of this possible decision, I had a conversation with leadership at NPFL, and it was made clear to me. I offered up, hey, I think you guys should do an angler survey before a decision is made, and I was told there was not an interest in doing that. Ultimately, we eventually had a angler meeting scheduled. That was last week, but there was no. For me, I'm a numbers guy. I don't want to make assumptions on who is for it, who's against it, who's indifferent, because again, this is just like politics, everyone lands everywhere. So I paid my own money to get a SurveyMonkey subscription and to get the enhanced version that gives us the best opportunity to build a fair and equal survey. Transparently, I am currently a financial sponsor of the league. I did this survey independently, separate from the league. The league had nothing to do with this survey. They, again, I did this strictly on my own, had no obligation with the league. So the first question was, do you support the use of forward-facing sonar in NPFL tournaments? Responses on that, we had 62.63% said yes, 14.14% said no, and 23.23% said indifferent. The second question, if NPFL banned forward-facing sonar, would you fish in 2025? 67.71% said yes, 32.29% said no. Third question, if NPFL banned forward-facing sonar, would you consider other leagues to fish in 2025? So very similar to question 2, but a little bit of a spin on it in the sense that, hey, if they ban it, instead of you saying definitively yes or no, will you fish? Are you going to entertain fishing other places? Like, does that decision they make put you in a position to consider other leagues? So that's why that question was asked. That question 3, the responses was 53.06% said they would consider other leagues, and 46.94% said no. If the fourth question is, if NPFL banned forward-facing sonar, would it cause a financial impact to you and your sponsors in a positive or negative way? 7% said it would positively impact them if sonar was banned. 65% said no impact, and 27.2% said it would negatively financially impact them. Question 5, if there was an alternative to a flat-out ban, would you support the following? The first one was 50-50 of 50% of the schedule with, 50% of the schedule without forward sonar, reduction to 1 live transducer, and then other, and there was a free-form input for other. Of those options, 23% said 50-50, 48% said reduce to 1 transducer, and 28% did a free-form input of other, and it was kind of a wash all over the place, transparently, that 28%, half of them were comments not even related to the question. So it was kind of a wash at that point in time for those ones. And then question 6 was just a free-form, which was any other items you would like to discuss or add, please input here. And that I tried to, while I knew the position I was in making the survey and the way the optics on it, where I'm a business owner and a sponsor, I got accused by other anglers of doing this with the rise to keep it and force someone's hand at a decision. I did it strictly because I felt like a decision being made that would impact the way we fish. There should at least be something out there that says, here's what the anglers think about it. That's all the reason I did it. And, ultimately they made the decision. The data, we had 99 of 118 active anglers fill out the survey. I had anglers that reached out to me and said they wouldn't fill out my survey because they didn't want any data on it, because they wanted forward sonar banned, so they did not want to fill out the survey. I had probably 40 something anglers reach out to me and thank me for doing it because they were given a platform to express their opinion. And then I had other people that, just filled out the survey and put their thoughts on it, which was the goal for it. So ultimately my goal with the survey was to give information to ownership, and also for our upcoming angler meeting that they scheduled with us, to have data for that meeting. That was the entire reason I did it. That was it.
And real quick, my wife let me know a note here to clarify something Mr. Yarborough said in that question was, he wasn't saying that the questions were skewed, that someone else was claiming that and wanted that cleared up. Am I right there, hon? Okay, so clarify that. Sorry about that, Don. So yeah, and from what you've said there, I don't think those questions could have been more sterilely written. It sounds like exactly what your intent was, is to get information, to distribute it, to have it for everybody.
Yep. Yeah, it was just to give data. And my sole thought process was that I wanted ownership to at least know where they're somewhat a majority of their field sat, and they could use that data. They could not use that data. They could dismiss my data publicly on another podcast. I don't care. I'm a numbers guy, and I wanted some sort of data. And honestly, when I ran out the survey, I was hoping it came back and showed that 90% of the field wanted it banned, and it was just time for me to move on somewhere else. Like if that's what the field ultimately wanted, I was going to support it either way. If the survey was the other direction, where 99.9% of it wanted it to stay, I wanted that information available for us. And you can interpret the data however you want. I had a conversation with one of NPFL leadership on Monday, and he interpreted the data different than I did, and that's perfectly fine. Like I tried to have a middle of the road approach with those questions. I could have made questions very manipulative to where it was benefited my business and all that good stuff. But all I wanted was data on what the field thought. That's all I cared about.
Makes perfect sense. And I also had the understanding that with the subscription you got to SurveyMonkey, that there may have been some dual surveys kicked that were inputted more than once.
So SurveyMonkey will kind of let you know if it thinks there was duplicate surveys submitted. It's normally very evident if the same questions are answered over and over again with the same response. So there was, if I remember right, it was 3 responses that came in a 5-minute window that all had the same responses. And I actually had that angler reach out to me and say he accidentally did it 3 times. So we removed those 2 false or duplicate entries to make the one entry active.
That makes sense. Very good. That was kind of the one experience I had with SurveyMonkey years ago too. Yeah, that kind of thing's handy.
Yep.
So as far as the future of it, you've said that, Trent, you've said that as after this season, I think probably going to try to find other pastures. You can give me the finger if you don't want to answer. I don't want to put you on the spot too bad, but Mike, what are you thinking?
Man, like I said, okay. So I am very much, this is in politics. This is my views in just about everything. I don't agree with all out bans. I actually, I work for an electronics company here. Okay. So, it is a biased opinion. There's really no other way to say it, but I do realize I'm very level headed. I'm very middle of the road on a lot of stuff. And what I said was, hey, there might be an opportunity here. Okay, look, like I said, 6 months of the year around here, we fish in a foot of water. I mean, I won a couple tournaments around the house this year without even turning my graphs on, except for the map. I mean, I got trophies on the wall from well before it came out. I'm not saying I can flip bushes against Greg Hackney, but I'm just saying there is a skill to it just as much as there is the other stuff. Okay. I think that you have to be well-rounded and do a little bit of everything. And so with that being said, I actually was for potentially a mixed schedule or a hybrid schedule that might be, 3 with or 3 without or something like that. And finding some sort of middle of the road, because again, if most of your customers are saying this, that they don't want to see it banned, and there is absolutely a number of people that do want to see it banned. So if you take that, find a middle of the road and kind of make your anglers happy. I would love an all-out Whackfest shallow. I mean, I think that 2 or 3 of our tournaments were won without it this year. I mean, Brandon Perkins whooped everybody in the championship throwing a swim bait up shallow in 2 foot of water. I mean, to say that it's only one on Forward Facing Sonar just isn't true. Now, does it play in every tournament? Absolutely it does. Absolutely it does. But I do think that there's a happy medium with just about everything. And that's, I don't know, just my take on it. So.
Gotcha. Let's see here. There is an encouraging also comment here from the gallery. Scott Etzel says, Trent, in the big picture and in the future of the sport, youth in progress are always unbeatable. You will come out ahead, in my opinion. And, it kind of reminds me of a comment that Dave Mercer said to me here just not too long ago at all, here just a couple weeks back. He said that in the history of mankind, youth is undefeated. And I thought about it, and I immediately said, I'm stealing that, right? And, as long as I promise him a cut, of any residuals, he'll get it. But, at the end of the day, it's kind of it. And I don't want to make it generational because it's not necessarily 100% generational, but it does kind of have the feel sometimes that some folks that have put in their time on the water and been at this for a lot of years just don't want any part of it. The last thing they want to do is not start over from scratch, but learn a whole nother skill set. And I kind of get that, right? I mean, at some point you should be able to kick back, put up your feet and just do what you do. And so I kind of get that mentality. At the same time, it's also a situation where I can personally see its effect a negative effect of forward-facing sonar in areas other than bass fishing. I think we've all come to realize that bass are pretty nimble as far as their learning process. And I think that they are a lot more leery. They pick up on things quicker. They can pivot and learn and retain too. Whereas some other species, not so much. It's been talked about, muskie. I can kind of see that, if you see Red October, go past the side of your boat with the kind of loner personalities that they are and do a couple of figure eights in front of them, get them to bite. That's one thing. White bass, crappie, things like that. I kind of get it. But like you were speaking to an all-out ban, I agree with that. You can't do that. So in my personal opinion, I think it's almost up to the states to kind of have to feel their way through, and also they're who we pay our tax dollars to and our license fees to, right? So
Yeah.
they need to really step up on keeping an eye on that and doing proper stocking in lakes, which is not done, I don't think, correctly in any state in the United States
Except maybe
anymore.
Texas. They gotta go.
Texas. I was going to say Texas. Texas knocks it out of the park.
There's some big
You
ones.
know, and I mean, it's like, I mean, I know Sherlunker over in Texas,
Yeah.
right? I know for bass, it's absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I know for like put in, take out catfish, channel catfish. But when it comes to things like crappie, white bass, pretty much non-existent.
Yeah. And it's
interesting.
I think in the whole conversation of Forward Sonar, no different than, you know, what my goal was with the survey was I want data out there.
Exactly.
What frustrates me is just individuals' assumptions of what Forward Sonar does to a fishery when none of us have biologist data to back it, right?
There you go.
In my opinion, and again, this is my opinion, I have no biology data to back it, to be transparent. I think, you know, I look at the progression of our sport. You know, when Corbishley and I were in college fishing, it was nowhere to the scale it is now at all. I mean, from the caliber of not the caliber of anglers, but from the caliber of boats that participate in high school, college fishing now compared to what we had. I mean, when we had college tournaments, it looked like there was a permanent fog on the water because everyone's two strokes were burning oil, ready to rock and roll. And honestly, it smelled better back when we all had two strokes sometimes, but it ultimately in this whole thing, what I think is probably the double-edged sword in our industry is the sport has grown so much that we are putting an abundance of boat pressure on these fisheries that is causing the fish, in my opinion, to suspend and not be on typical structure, which is where Forward Sonar has started to shine when individuals have targeted those anglers or those fish. I don't think those fish have suspended because of Forward Sonar. And the reason I say that is I'll use my home lake, Lake Lanier, for example. I've lived here for almost 10 years. The first few years I lived here, you could go throw a chrome topwater all day from May to September, October. While you can still get bit on it, it is not as productive as it used to be because those fish have gotten their brains beaten by those style of baits, and they've adapted to know, hey, that's not forage for me anymore. I know not to go after that because it's going to put me in a situation I don't like. And ultimately, I think a part of the issue in the whole forward-facing sonar topic is, a big thing is scheduling, time of year. A big thing with scheduling is, hey, are we going to an overpressured fishery? Are we going to go, are we going to go down to the St. Johns River in prime spawn like we always do? Those fish have adapted to spawn in different areas because of the pressure. Are we going to go, to the St. Lawrence River in July where the fish are just out deep on structure and getting their brains beat in by a drop shot? I think a lot of aspect with Forward Sonar conversation that's just not brought up a lot is it's not forward facing sonar's fault that our fish are getting pressured. It's the fact that we're having 40 tournaments, a month that's an exaggeration, but we're having a ton of tournaments on bodies of water that just can't support it. And that's why Forward Sonar has shined, because our fish have started moving to different positions. While I think there was always suspended fish, I do think, ultimately us having too many tournaments is part of this. And the fact too is, COVID was a unique situation, got more people on the water. People watched videos, people, saw a video of a guy catching a 30-pound bag on Pickwick. They went to Pickwick and they caught a 30-pound bag doing what the guy said in the video. Like, as a populace in the fishing industry, we're more educated than we've ever been before, by far.
That is absolutely true. And I'm like you. I'm a numbers guy. I'm an analytics guy. I would love to see real data done on this. But also, being an analytics guy, that you have to have someone that's good at what they do to do it correctly.
Yeah.
Doing numbers on this complicated of a scale takes somebody that not just is recreational in it, has to really have their chops. So, okay. So we've went over from the decision And the survey, which I think was done beautifully. Like I said, I don't think it could be any more sterilely written than that.
I see a comment here I'll respond to. So a guy named Jake said, does Trent only believe this because of his business? So to be clear, obviously you can say that I have an advantageous benefit of Forward Sonar staying around because of my business, right? I was in business. I was installing fish finders on the side before I even branded Sonar Pros, well before Forward Facing Sonar. If you look at the early install pictures on my business page, I had a picture I posted of dropping a penny off of the trolling motor to be picked up on Lowrance's 2D sonar to showcase how that unit was tuned and installed to show a penny dropping off of the boat. So I've been involved in this before Forward Sonar, and I love technology, period. So 100%, is it advantageous for anglers to utilize technology and utilize my business's services to put that technology on? Yes. But here's the thing. With or without Forward Sonar, units are going to be installed on boats. For NPFL guys for next year, they're going to be down one less graph than a current setup because they're not going to need a second graph up front for Forward Sonar. They might need a second graph for 360, and they can still use I'm still going to install units with or without Forward Sonar. I mean, at my shop, I would say right now, probably 60% of the boats going through the shop are getting Forward Sonar, and the other 40% are getting traditional rigging services, power poles, batteries, cleanup services, battery tidies, speakers, lights. Like, there's a lot of aspects to rigging outside of Forward Sonar. And to be transparent, in the big world of electronics and freshwater fishing, professional fishing is a very, very small aspect to it. While it's influential with certain anglers, big time anglers like our good buddy Patrick Walters and stuff like that have a following and influence, when it comes to what the overabundance of anglers do, for like the NPFL perspective, them banning it isn't going to make Humminbird, Garmin, or Lowrance shut their doors, right? They're still going to sell units because there's still aspects to units that even without Forward Sonar are very beneficial. Mapping, side scan, down scan, 2D sonar, integration with motors on the boats, integration with audio systems, serious rate. There are so many aspects to electronics outside of Forward Facing Sonar. So to answer that question, for me, like I said, my proposal in this whole thing was to limit it to one transducer and to build regulation that define the technology as it exists now, so that when it gets to a point where it's straight up like AI telling you, hey, there's a 4-pound smallmouth bass 100 feet to the right, cast a drop shot, that we don't get to that point, because I think that would be a problem. I am all for us finding regulation that ensures that we do protect our passion of fishing in our industry as fishing, because the last thing I do want to see is that technology gets to a point to where there is a problem, right? I don't think we're at that point right now, but I think we're also at a weird crossroad where, it's the sport has almost grown bigger than it can support, and we're kind of falling in this weird thing where there's just so many people involved with it. So to answer that question, Jake had, I with or without Forward Sonar, obviously it's advantageous for my business, but I have tried to segment that as much as I can a little bit in what I've said. It's obviously frustrating for me as a sponsor of the league that this decision was made. But at the same time, too, I know I can fish without Forward Sonar. My BFL I won without Forward Sonar. I won it in 8 inches of water. NPFL event that I won with Forward Sonar. I really don't care to fish with or without it. I like fishing with it because I love catching fish offshore in unique ways. That's my favorite thing to do. That's all Lake Lanier is. Lake Lanier is offshore, targeting suspended fish. It is a blast to me. I thoroughly enjoy going out and fishing with Forward Sonar. So
it's very much, if for the guys that like sight fishing, and this is just my opinion, for the guys that like sight fishing out there, it's kind of the ability to sight fish while you're off the bank. And that kind of adds a fun factor to it that has, and one thing we haven't really touched on in this whole deal is that all the kids coming up through the high school and college programs today have all grown up with the technology, and you're kind of eliminating that group of people coming into your organization as a result of it. And I think it's important to kind of kind of get everybody involved, from the ground level up. But yeah, I don't know. I've seen Jake ask like 4 times, "Are you fishing it next year?" I don't know the answer to that if it's for me. What I end up fishing is going to be designated based on my work schedule. To be honest with you, NPFL has been great because it's scheduled throughout the entire year, so it's 6 events plus a championship. But the way that they do it is, we've got a couple month gap between each event. So I can or can't fish it depending on how work goes, and the fact that I work for Lowrance and they're banning one of our products, it's going to be a difficult thing for me to do. So that's my response, and I don't think Trent's going to, based on his response. But
no, I'll go ahead and say,
I do respect those people, but
yeah,
that's it.
The reason I'm not fishing with the NPFL next year is, if anyone wants to look back to the tail end of last year, NPFL worked out a way with some of my help on how to get units to communicate, and Mike's help too, to help get the units to communicate to a device that outputs the video feed so that they could do the picture-in-picture live sonar. That was promoted as being one of the first leagues to do it, which they were. Bass and MLF followed after NPFL did that. My sponsorship this year was for I don't even remember the official branding of it right now, but it's the Sonar Pros Live View, which my financial investment as a business was for the branding of that picture-in-picture aspect. So that's the entire reason I put money into the league outside of my entry fees, was because of that picture-in-picture branding. Less than I'm trying to do math here. That was September, so less than a year later, we're now in a position where that opportunity to sponsor that has been taken away. That's a big reason as to why I'm gonna move on to fish something different. It's nothing ill-willed necessarily against NPFL. I just don't agree with the decision being 180'd within a year of me making a financial sponsorship for that specific item.
And that's tough. That's tough.
Yeah, and that's I guess that would be my question back to people. If you were in my position, what would you do?
Yeah, I can completely see that.
Yeah.
I know that it's probably, how should I say? Well, I'm not going to go there with that question. That question is too much hot seat. I'm not going to do that to y'all. You guys are.
Sorry, I'm going to munch for a
I
second.
feel like we're on the hot seat already. It's like I don't know.
It's one of those things where it's really brutal to have a business associated as a sponsor with the league and then get put in that position. I know that's not a place I would like to be in, nor I think anybody else would, because let's face it, no matter where you end up fishing, you fall in with the social circle, with the camaraderie. It becomes a kind of an extended family. And to feel like for whatever reason you're being pushed out of that isn't fun, no matter what age you are. Young or old, no one wants to do it. So when I took over a bass club a long time ago, a lot of the older guys were getting shoved out by guys that wanted to make the thing something it wasn't. And I felt like I needed to advocate for them and try to get everybody together. We ended up able to do it, but it wasn't instant oatmeal.
Right.
So I can understand the reason for the survey and to get everything kind of aired out from an anonymous standpoint so that folks can try to meet in the middle and figure something out if ownership wants it to go that route.
Yeah.
As far as, let's see, I'm not going to ask that. Let me scroll through some comments here before I get myself in. Let's see here. Let's see.
Sorry as y'all see me nibble a little bit. I got a steak staring at me, and I haven't ate anything today.
Dude. Oh,
What kind of sides we got? That's the question.
Oh, we got rice and asparagus.
That's good.
nothing wrong with that.
No,
Nothing wrong with that.
my fiance made dinner for me when I got home.
There you go. Keeper.
Uh-huh.
There's a keeper.
Very
Let's
much
see.
so.
I see one. Derek Hudson Fishing. Question for Trent and Mike. MLF or Bass? Where are you leaning? That's a good question.
Thanks for asking it for me.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
So, ironically, we're talking about rule changes, right? One of the things that's bothered me with MLF is all the rule changes with the Bass Pro Tour. So I'm a big MLF fan, but to try to, if you were to go to fish like the pro circuit and then try to qualify for the Bass Pro Tour with them cutting the field down, it makes it kind of tough to go that route. Now, granted, I love the schedule that they got going on with the pro circuit. I think it's incredible. I would love to go fish the pro circuit. Scheduling wise, it would be a little tough for me, but just like date wise. But outside of that, the opens is again, it's kind of tough too, right? Like I would love if they change the opens format to like a 6 event deal. Like I think I would really enjoy that if it ever got to that point. Fishing 9 tournaments throughout the years is kind of one of those deals where it makes it very difficult to work a full-time job and do it. So I would probably, if I had my choice, if it was like 6 events or 6 events, I would lean towards Bass. But on the MLF side, I think, so far I love the look of that pro circuit schedule. So it's a toss-up still. It's a scheduling thing.
I think so. My answer is probably similar to Mike's in the sense that I'll say this though. It'll deviate a little bit. I never have had aspirations to fish for a living. I don't want to fish for a living. It's nothing I ever intend to do. So I like being competitive in tournaments, and I like, have been relatively successful in the NPFL and made some money. I like living in that lane. I don't want my sole income to be fishing. That's nothing I have intentions for. So for me, the tough thing is with the current open format of 9 events and the payout as it is, because ultimately it's a qualification system. They're vetting out anglers that are competitive and that can financially make it through that position so that they have anglers that can financially pay to fish the Elite Series. For me, I've heard rumblings the opens might change. There might be a different format. If I think to Mike's point, if the opens change to like 6 events and the payout adjusts and the co-angler aspect maybe goes away, I would 100% have an interest in it. Now, on the flip side, and I have like no alliance or negativity towards any of the leagues. I love tournament bass fishing. I geek out on tournament bass fishing. So I support all of them, regardless of format, who runs it, who doesn't run it, who fishes it. I don't care. I love it all. For me, I fished MLF FLW for a long time. I won a BFL. I did well in some Toyotas in the Toyota Championship. The Tackle Warehouse schedule looks really good. Being in a Phoenix boat, if you win, it's $135,000. That's a fantastic payout. The payout in the field is pretty good as well. And they brought back a championship for next year, which all of us want to battle it out for that carrot, right? And and it's a big thing I love about the NPFL this year and next year is, or I should say this year and last year is, we're all battling it out in points for that carrot for a championship. That's very reminiscent of the old college days where all of us were battling for the national championship. It's a competitive aspect to it that I love. Mm-hmm. So for me, I don't really know if I have an answer for Bass or MLF. I will say the payout in the Tackle Warehouse was very enticing, and it's a similar, it's in the sense of 6 events with a similar entry fee process as what we're doing now. That would be very familiar to move over to. Going to the opens, if it was 9 events and it was the $1,800 and all that stuff, it would be a little foreign to me to do. And for me, with my business, 9 events would be a pretty tough time commitment for me to do. So I would say for me, I'm leaning more towards an interest in the Tackle Warehouse circuit, but I'm also waiting to see what everyone's, what everyone's change of plans are, because there's rumblings of Bass changing the opens, and there's rumblings of MLF changing, the way their feeder system works and all that stuff. So hopefully we have, I'm not going to make a decision until all the decks are laid out on or all the cards are laid out on the table, and I know what everyone's has to offer as far as where to fish and what to do.
Yeah, exactly.
We just like bass fishing, man. That's it.
Love bass fishing.
Yeah.
This isn't political. This isn't an argument like, anybody who doesn't like forward facing sonar is wrong. I see the arguments on both sides. I really do. I do get it. It's a matter. We just like to bass fish. Like we just like fishing. That's it. That's why we do what we do. I mean, we both work in the industry because we want to talk about boats all day. Like, it's fun. We try to stay out of the negativity. Here we are on talking about,
I mean, it's like I was talking to a friend of mine who is a content creator today, and he's like, you know what? I just made what I hope is my last video on forward facing sonar.
No way.
Lost it. I'm like, good luck, Chief. But let me know how that works out in a week. But yeah, I mean, Spot Hunter was asking. I think you pretty much addressed it. As to if Bass or MLF followed suit, kind of if that would change your mind on sticking around there or still testing the waters elsewhere. But I think you guys pretty much said that with wanting to get all the cards on the table to kind of make your decision.
Yeah,
that's wise. I mean, let's see here. Another gentleman asked, what was the person's name on viewership?
Here's an interesting one for me. This is what I don't understand about this topic. A guy named Dale on here said Trent's gonna game have to close up shop, and then he also said the NPFL is separating the men from the boys. Good on them. Why is there so much negativity towards this? As individuals, see, like I would never say anything about someone else's way of making a living in a negative way to say that they need to shut their doors. Like, why? I love bass fishing. That's all I care about. I love seeing the smile on anglers' face after we go out in the water after rigging their boat, and they maybe just have one fish finder or 10 fish finders, and they see the benefit. They see the fun in having. They see the fun in capturing or catching more fish. That's the end goal with all this: catch more bass, and that's all I care about. I don't understand why there's always people's personal attacks towards individuals that aren't in line with them. I don't understand it.
I know why, but I probably shouldn't say.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm just going to say there's one particular YouTuber who has made a living, literal living, tens of thousands of dollars off of drawing a line in the sand and vilifying one side versus the other.
Yeah. Like for me, I would say, Dale, I don't know who you are. I hope however you make a living, you are continuously successful. You get a raise this year and you catch more bass than me. That's all I care about.
There you go. Another gentleman, Shimano Shane, says he thinks that the FG knot should be outlawed because he can't tie one.
It is a tough knot.
I'll actually agree with that. I mean,
no, it's strong though.
Hey, Mike and I got dang good at FG knots this year. Patrick kind of taught us some tricks on it. And I'll be honest, Patrick Walters helped me learn how to tie a better FG knot, and I love tying them. I mean, it's kind of like a little hobby, figuring out how to make the knot tighter and all that stuff. They are annoying to tie, though. They take way too long. Like if I break off an FG in a tournament, that rod is not getting touched the rest of the day. It's
bingo
off to the side.
Yeah, I think I've tied one successful one. And then
it feels great. It feels great once you get the first one. You're like, this looks like the video I saw online.
Yes, finally. And then when I broke it off, I think people within at least a 10 square mile radius could hear the F-bomb I dropped. Because I mean, when I broke that thing off, I just was ready.
It hurts your soul. What always cracks me up this is off tangent. When I was trying to learn how to tie an FG knot, have you ever YouTubed how to tie FG knot? There's like not good videos on it. Like,
there's like 100 of videos that say different things.
yeah, they say
They're all
different things.
Yeah.
And,
They're
and
all
like,
different.
like the ones with animations are like, it's like, here's how to do it. And it's like, it does it so fast. You're like, what the heck am I supposed to do with this thing?
Oh my gosh, you're not kidding. Holy crap. And then it's like some of the better ones I've seen are in a language I don't know.
Yeah.
And I don't have a real-time translator. I'm like, but it looks good and I've got no idea what he's saying. And that just kicks my butt. But yeah, I've had one successful one, and that was it. And my wife and I sat around for like 3 or 4 hours, both of us, just kind of competing, messing with us, trying to get it down. And at some point, I just said, "Screw it, it's not for me."
Yeah. And this is the last thing I'll say. This guy, I saw Dale had another comment. And I'm not trying to single him out, but
Man,
he said, "I'm just saying, guys that catch them without forward facing sonar don't send out solicited surveys." To be clear about my survey, I sent it out because NPFL leadership said they did not want to survey the field on the decision. That's the only reason I did it. I felt like the field should at least have the opportunity to express their opinion. The survey, in my opinion, or the way I tried to write it, was not in any sort of definitive direction. It was just a platform for people to put their thoughts on paper because there was no way to do that prior to that survey. So that's the only reason I did that. And to your point, I want a BFL without forward sonar. I want an NPFL event with forward sonar. I can do it either way. So that's all I got.
Shout out to Big Jim real quick. Hey,
He's got a great YouTube channel. He's a fellow Phoenix guy. I see him all the time in the Phoenix group.
Big Jim. Oh, you do? He's the guy. I watch his videos all the time.
Yeah, he does great stuff. I love all his little tips and tricks with Phoenixes. I mean, I'm a boat nerd, and I'm a boat nerd, and I love all that kind of stuff.
I had the 920 Elite last year, and I remember watching his video. If I'm not mistaken, it was his 920 Elite video on like which options I was going to order. So shout out, Big Jim.
And before I get too much further down the line here, oh wow, thank you so much, Derek Hudson. I appreciate that. You're a good man for saying that. I also want to give a quick shout out to Scott Etzel, one of the moderators, Jay Carr, a moderator as well, and also Miss Riku. Thank you guys so much for showing up and helping out here this evening. Really appreciate y'all, especially on such short notice. I thank you. And to your point, Trent, about it being about the love of the sport, let's take a quick off ramp. What would, if, like they say, smell is, highly tied to memory. And I know that's true for me. So sometimes if I'm thinking of like a favorite memory from growing up fishing, I'll get a certain whiff in the air that'll take me back to a certain place. Or if I see if I see a nice tall pine tree, takes me back. I grew up fishing on an old fishing barge, and there was a wood burning stove in the back. So sometimes I get that whiff of that cedar burning, and I'm thinking, okay, yeah, I know where I'm at. For y'all, if you had to just come up with one of the most perfect fishing memories you had from growing up learning the sport, what would it be?
That's a good question.
Memories or smells? You said smells.
Yeah, well, both. I mean, because both. I mean,
mine first. I thought we were going with smells, but mine was. So I work with the OEMs at boat manufacturers. My favorite thing in the world is walking into a boat builder, like whether it's Ranger, Phoenix, Vexus, Basscat, any of them, and the smell of fiberglass. It's awesome. Like the smell of fiberglass is great. Being around that and being around boats while they're being built, because someone's about to have a bunch of fun on that thing when they get done with it. But other than that, I could give you thousands of times on the water. Just enjoy. Honestly, the NPFL has probably been some of my best memories over the past few years. That's probably what makes the start of this whole discussion why we're disappointed with the direction of it. But at the end of the day, love it all. Yeah.
I think memory growing up, I grew up fishing on Lake Champlain and in a small lake in Wisconsin where we have a family cottage that's been in my family for 60 years. So all my younger memories were fishing on that cottage. It has a very unique smell to it that just is like up north country, northern woods smell. And I had some really good memories younger with my dad and grandfather catching smallmouth is probably my favorite thing. But yeah, in recent term, as far as other memories, I mean, like the past 3 years fishing with the NPFL has been some of my most favorite and cherished memories I've had. Traveling with the roommate group we have, winning last year, seeing my fiance cry as I held up that trophy in check was a pretty cool experience too.
Oh yeah. Here is a question from the
she's smiling at me over here now. So that was good.
You totally screwed me over here because my wife's in the other room. We just had our first appointment today because we found out she's pregnant. So we are having a baby, and we just had an appointment, and you just dropped the fiance thing. I'm talking about fishing.
See, that's funny.
Hey, Rose, you can hear me. I love you.
A little behind the scenes back up there, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
My wife wants to know, Matt, will you fish the championship still since it's on Hartwell?
Heck yeah.
Well, heck yeah.
I'm qualified. Well, it's Hartwell. So Hartwell's from this year. So it's winning your in format. So I won at Hartwell in April, and Trent's doing pretty good in the points. So I feel like we're looking forward to that one. I've only been there a handful of times, but it's like 4 hours from the house. I love that place, man. It's awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited for when I saw the championship was on Hartwell. That's where I won my BFL. It's at a top 10 finish there this year. It's very, 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 very similar to Lake Lanier, and I really, really love it. I haven't won this year. I'm sitting. I was actually going to check it real quick. They didn't update it. Okay. Well, I did some rough math, and I should be probably in 5th in AOI after this last event because I've had 3 top 10s in a row now.
You see,
it's coming that damn forward facing sonar, baby.
Tater box.
Yeah, spotlighting. The spotlighting analogy is the one that's always just made my ears just want to just start bleeding. Whenever I see that, it's like I feel an aneurysm coming on because it's like, it's like I think of there's a lake I like to frequent whenever I'm able to get out and go with my wife. One of our favorite state parks has the most crystal clear freaking water. I mean, gin clear bath water. And I have a very high powered little 12,000 lumen flashlight. And I'll go over and just look at night, right? See what's up in the grass. And hey, every time I've tried to spotlight a bass, it's hauled ass.
Yep.
It's seen that. So anyway, that's why that analogy just breaks my brain.
Well, the other interesting thing is the technical side of Mike, please correct me if I'm wrong. But the technical side of how these transducer work is they actually emit, essentially a sound signal in a 360-degree format. And it's only the receiving end that is that beam everyone talks about. So it's not really a beam transmitting out. There's a signal that's transmitted out in omnidirection, but it's how that beam is received is what does it. So it's technically not a spotlight, and is my understanding, but
Well, I don't know, it's different things. Anyways.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's somewhere along those lines. But anyways, it's
way over my head. It's way over my head. I work in sales, dude.
Yeah, that's true.
Another channel put out something that I think Scott's getting at here. I think he's probably got it from the same person I heard it from as well. Anglers, and I have a question to back up the statement here. Anglers need to know the rules from Bass and MLF so they can order their new boats, electronics for next year. I did see that popularized by a certain individual. Not having a dog in the fight and not knowing how hard it is, they order their boats, they get their electronics, rules change, it's not incredibly. It's not. I mean, how hard is it to remove the electronics? Once put.
It's not.
It's more of a pain in the ass, right?
Yeah, it's not hard. The only at-risk thing you have, because I've just seen it so many times, is there is always a potential when you're removing something it gets damaged. So there's a possibility you damage your investment. Other than that, it's not technically hard to remove it.
If you were to do it every tournament, like on or off, yeah.
Yeah, you're opening the door for issues. But yeah, I mean, I don't, we're just starting to get in this season of when everyone's selling their boats and stuff. I mean, it's not terribly difficult to put an order in and wait a little bit to figure out what's going on. I mean, rumor mill, all these announcements were supposed to already happen. So I do hope something comes out here soon so people can make decisions on where they go.
It's my understanding. Well, let me preface this so I don't get roasted. It's my understanding from people I've talked to that are supposed to be in the know that we're supposed to know sooner than later. Whether that'll actually happen, it remains to be seen. I reserve the right, as always, to say I told you so after the fact. That's kind of my fun with that. Let's see. Scott says, as far as his memories, the smell of opening a can of Vienna sausage.
Good Lord.
I've got the best story about that. So my freshman year in college, I wasn't a boater. I fished as a co-angler at Georgia Southern University. And the guy I fished with, he would eat Vienna sausages, which is perfectly... Dean? No, not Dean. He would, which was perfectly normal. The not normal part was after the sausages were consumed, he would drink the liquid.
I knew it.
And I will always remember that for the rest of my life because I was like, bro, no.
A half a second before you said that crap.
You knew what I was going to say?
Yeah,
he would slurp. He would shoot that thing like a shot and just slurp it down.
See, one of my funniest memories when it comes to that is being on the water. Man, it must have been February or March. No, it wouldn't have been February. I think it would have been maybe March. We had a tournament where the wind speed wasn't going to get below about 35, 40 miles an hour all day. The temperature wasn't going to get above, what was it? That's around 30 miles an hour, but the temperature wasn't going to get above, I want to say 40, 45. And we had 2 inches of rain just during tournament hours. So, I mean, it was freaking miserable. And a lot of us find ourselves hiding during part of the torrential downpours underneath this big multi-stall dock, right? Well, my wife, packing the lunch, and knowing it was going to be brutally cold, had done this nice thermos of chicken noodle soup. So I cracked this thing open. Then the smell starts to waft around all the other boats parked underneath this dock. And I look up to see about 20 death stares of folks that are ready to put my head underwater till the bubbles stop because I don't have enough to share. And when I looked up after taking that sip, the top just went back on, went back down to my feet like nothing to see here. I mean, I thought I was about to get killed. That day was brutal. And I had I drew the coolest boater that day, a gentleman that lived just in the record books around my parts. Such a good guy. And I drew him that day, and we were on this one point. It was freezing cold. Couldn't feel our legs. So wet, water was finding a way through the freaking Gore-Tex. And he pops up and says out of nowhere, everything's super quiet. It's starting to get cold, ain't it? I'm like, starting? I couldn't feel my nuts 4 hours. It's starting to get cold. And I about laughed myself in the water. It was so freaking funny.
That's great.
So, I know we all have those days out there where sometimes the victory is surviving.
Okay, that was asking.
Absolutely.
Oh, so anyway, let's see here. We'll run okay. I have to highlight this comment, not because of the comment, but because I think the name attached to the person saying it makes it even better.
Oh, geez. I'll be honest with you, guys.
Dale Gribble, though.
I'm having a great time on the show. If you don't have your real name attached to this, and if you have something to say where you can't say it with your real name attached to it, I don't have a ton of respect. So I'm sorry. That is pretty funny, though, the Dale Gribble thing.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't realize that was the Dale that was being referenced. That was the first time I saw Gribble. To me,
no, that's okay.
That could be like a funny freaking troll.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is, which is funny. But I mean,
I guess if it was an actual troll, though, the name would be Rusty Shackelford. Right? That would be technically correct.
Yeah.
Let me. Is there anything else, hon, that I should have covered? You think we're good? All righty. Well, guys. Oh, wait. Yep. Okay. Yeah. Let's go ahead and throw Derek's up here. Yep. We know the answer to one, but Lawrence, how about you, kind sir?
The answer is Lawrence. That's the only answer.
Both.
I have no obligation with any of them. I run all three brands on my boat. They all have their benefits, and I don't have an obligation to any of them.
That's not an answer, Trent.
It depends on what you want to. I mean, when it comes to Forward Sonar, Garmin, when it comes to waypoint management, side scan, down scan, 2D sonar, integration with accessories in the boat, Lawrence is the king.
That's a good amount of features.
Yep. And then, Hummingbird's good at mapping in some certain points in the country, and then their 360 is good. When it comes to side scan, I think Lawrence and Hummingbird are the kings there by far.
Gotcha. Well, and by the way, I would be remiss if I didn't say congratulations, Mike. Glad we could break the news here.
Hey, thank you. This is funny. This is like I haven't even told anybody yet. Yet here I am on the podcast.
You know what? I'm going to end up having to put that in the tags.
It's funny.
Pregnancy announcement. Heard it here first.
I should probably post it on my social media before.
Okay, yeah. I'll 5 minutes head start.
Yeah.
I'll let you got it. I'm not going to bust you too bad there. That would be a hell of a way for some people to learn. You might get some nasty calls. I wouldn't do that. Let's see here. And I'm going to do one more quick pass through here. And if anybody else has had some wonderful comments I haven't gotten to, I apologize in advance. Not in advance. Retrospect. Pardon me. When it comes to lives, I'm still a bit green. Got to stretch my legs and get it done. And I cannot thank you two gentlemen enough for having done this. I appreciate it more than you know. I think it's been a lot of fun. I hope you guys have had fun too. And and Derek Hudson said, congrats, Mike and Mrs. Mike.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, I appreciate it. I mean, I hope that y'all find the pastures y'all are looking for, respectively there. And I'll definitely be following y'all. And hopefully y'all can get to come back and we can chat up another subject sometime. And hopefully it'll be a little bit more palatable.
I know thank you so much for having us. I really do appreciate
thank you.
it.
Oh, man. Pleasure's all mine, guys. Pleasure's all mine. So, and I'll keep y'all backstage here for 1 second here after I go ahead and sign off. To everybody out there, just remember that, a lot of us are hot or cold. There's not a lot of middle ground on Forward Facing Sonar, but try to remember we're all anglers first, and we're all in this because we love the sport of bass fishing. And whether it's competitive or out fun or out hammering the crappie on a weekend, we do these things because we love fishing. And I think at the end of the day, if we remember that, maybe we cannot strangle each other, hopefully. So, what I'm going to do is go ahead and sign off here at this point with what I always do. I'm going to keep you all backstage for a second. To everybody out there, thank each and every one of you guys for joining us this evening. We appreciate it. It's been a very successful live stream, my most successful to date. I want to thank all of you. I sincerely mean that. And do me a favor. Weather's going to start to cool off. So until next time we meet, get out there in the water. Y'all know the drills, guys. Keep it wet.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let's see here.